Hey, Plumber Tom here. If you're preparing for a plumbing state test or trying to improve your knowledge of code and understanding of plumbing, don't forget to check in the description below for links to study guides, online courses, and other resources that will help you to learn the code and pass your test. When you click on those links and purchase resources, you're helping me to be able to create more great content. Thanks for watching. NFPA 13D, standard for the installation of sprinkler systems in 1 and 2 family dwellings and manufactured homes. Hello, welcome to this presentation of the NFPA 13D residential fire sprinkler. My name is Thomas, and in this presentation, we're going to look at chapters 1, 2, and 3. We'll introduce you to this code. We'll get into some of its requirements. Let's get started. Residential fire sprinklers, why are they needed? What's the purpose? Chapter 1 really helps us to understand why we even install fire sprinklers to begin with. It's like having a firefighter in every room of your home, says this unique advertisement for residential fire sprinklers. Chapter 1 is administration. Similar to other codes, we have to know kind of the rules, who's in charge, and how we're supposed to play. 1.1 talks about the design, installation, and maintenance of systems and points out that this code is for those purposes and not for the purposes of a mist system. There are other fire suppression systems that use mist. That's not included in here. They got some other thing going somewhere else. This section also points out that this code is designed to protect against fire originating in a single location. Now, in order to understand that, we got to think through this fire suppression system. We have water pipes all through the building with sprinkler heads. Those sprinkler heads we will talk about in depth as we study this. But you need to know up front that they are heat activated. A small vial containing an oil that will rupture when it is heated to a certain temperature is the only thing that holds that sprinkler closed. And when the heat hits the ceiling and it reaches a certain temperature, pop, out comes the water and it puts out the fire. That's the idea. But that system is designed for a fire originating in one place. If in a certain room fire breaks out and the temperature rises, it pops that sprinkler. But the sprinklers are not designed for fires that break out in multiple places at the same time. Mostly because the probability is fairly low. These fires incidentally happen in one place most of the time. And for that reason, the design of these is excellent for putting out a fire in one place. But if they pop out at the same time all over the place, we might not have the pressure and volume to get it all down. Section 1.2 gives us the purpose. If we're going to do anything, it's helpful to know why we're doing it, and up front in this code, it tells us the reason why. It is to protect against injury and loss of life. You might think this is about trying to protect the property, about keeping the whole building from burning down, and if that happens, that's nice. But that is secondary to the fact that human life is the most important thing. And if we can have a system that protects human life, that's why we do this, to protect against injury and loss of life. These systems are designed to prevent flashover, which is where the smoke billowing in the top of the room piles up and is a flammable gas and comes to the point where it is ignited. When that happens in a fire situation, it goes crazy out of control because the amount of heat that's generated in a flashover. It is so much harder to stop a fire when it has gone to flashover. Flashover, an instant of fire spreading very rapidly across the gap because of intense heat. Flashover. So, these systems are going to kill it at the ceiling. It knocks down the fire, knocks down that smoke, and eliminates the possibility of a flashover. One other reason stated clearly in this code for having the code is to improve the chance for escape or evacuation. Once again, this isn't designed to put out all the fire and save the building. If that happens, great. But the real intent here is to make sure that anyone inside of there that is at risk has time to get out. Which also means that if you're in a fire, that should be your priority. Get out. 1.3, retroactivity. The question is, once you have a code, does that apply to existing systems? Here's what it has to say about retroactivity. From the time of the code issued going forward, then things must comply. This does not apply to existing buildings. Authorities can require updates of old systems if they see that there is a present risk. Also, modifications are okay if it is impractical and still can be made safe. Section 1.4, Equivalency. This code is not intended to prevent other systems from being used, but if they are used, first of all, you would need to present documentation that it's going to do the job. Second, approval would have to be required from the inspector or the code official, those that have the authority and jurisdiction in the area. Section 1.5 is a sidestep to just mention that we're using the metric system, and that's how it's been in the NFPA 13D for a long time. The 2025 code actually updates that and says, well, America's just not going to catch up. I mean, for whatever reason, we still don't have the metric system. So for those of you poor suckers that are out there and don't know how to convert, here's a table. We'll use the American standard system. You'll find that in the 2025, not in the 2016. Section 1.6, new technology. The code's not intended to restrict the use of new technologies within fire sprinkler systems, but they would have to be installed according to the listing from the manufacturer. Let's move on to Chapter 2, Referenced Publications. This chapter, as you go through it, gives you several columns listing one after another the standards that would have to be met for the materials that go into a fire sprinkler system. That includes standards in the NFPA, the ANSI, the ASME, the ASTM, and the ASW standards. If you want more details, why don't you peruse Chapter 2? Chapter 3, Definitions. 3.1 gives us this general blanket statement. If something is not defined here in the NFPA 13D, why don't you just go get yourself a dictionary and look it up? I mean, that makes perfect sense. They recommend the Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary 11th edition, in case you care. Basically, they're saying we're not going to list out every word that's in the book in our definitions. I just find it amusing that they're like, go look it up in the dictionary. There you go. Let's, however, take a moment to look at some of the definitions that are in here because they will provide understanding for us as we move through this code. Some of them are really important because of the implication of the word, including these right here. 3.2.5, the word shall. The word shall indicates a mandatory requirement. That means this is not optional. You have to do it this way when it says shall. You will also find throughout this code the word should. 3.2.6 defines that as a word that indicates a recommendation or that which is advised but not required. Basically, it's a really good idea to do it this way, but we're not going to make you. Let's look at the definition for compartment. As we have a close look at that, it's basically describing a room. It's a space that's enclosed by walls and has a ceiling. Yeah, that's a room. We're going to call it a compartment here. It can have openings to other spaces, and even without a door. A lintel is an extension of the wall, comes down from the ceiling, but doesn't go all the way to the floor. So you can have openings to other rooms with a lintel that comes down 8 inches from the ceiling. That's going to fall into this definition of a compartment, when you've got that lintel that comes down that separates you. The total width in an opening from this room or compartment to another one should not be more than 8 feet, or then it becomes one larger compartment. And finally, you can have an opening that goes from this compartment to another with no lintel, so we've got an opening all the way to the ceiling. As long as it's not wider than 36 inches, that's going to create enough of a partition here to where we have a separated compartment. So that kind of gives us a definition for each compartment, which will be helpful later because we have to provide sprinklers in compartments. Design discharge is the rate of water discharged by an automatic sprinkler expressed in gallons per minute. The definition for dwelling is a detached or part of a building separated by a fire-rated assembly. So you can have the building itself, or in the case of a multifamily building, you can have a firewall that separates the two different dwellings. Definition for dwelling unit: one or more rooms arranged for the use of one or more individuals, living together as a single house sleeping unit that normally have cooking, living, sanitary, and sleeping facilities. That makes a lot of sense, right? Here's a space where I can cook, where I can use the bathroom, where I can sleep and live. That's going to make my dwelling unit. Now, dwelling units can be put together within a building. You can have townhouse, condo, apartments. But this helps us to separate out individual living spaces, and that's where we get the dwelling unit definition. There's a definition in here for manufactured home. It has to be transportable in one or more sections, have an 8-foot body or more in width, 40 feet or more in length, and a minimum of 320 square feet. It could be bigger. That puts us into the manufactured home category. We find in the definitions this important definition of pressure, and it's separated into 3 significant pressures that we deal with in these systems. Number 1, supply pressure. This is the pressure within the supply. Example, the city or the private water source, a well. System pressure. This is the pressure within the system itself. So that's anything above the main control valve. And system working pressure. This is the maximum anticipated static, that's non-flowing, or flowing pressure applied to sprinkler system components exclusive of surge pressures. So this is going to be the pressure that it's either holding or that it's moving as the sprinkler is open. Next, we have the definition of shadow area. This is a dry floor area within the protection of a sprinkler created by a portion of the sprinkler discharge that is blocked by a wall or a partition. You can see in this illustration, the sprinkler is the circle. The diagonal line is the stream of water flow. When that stream of water flow is spraying from the sprinkler, it will hit that corner of the wall that's protruding. And that corner of the wall will deflect a certain amount of water. This becomes an important factor in the location of sprinklers, because if that shadow area gets too big and the sprinkler is trying to put out the fire, it might not be able to reach it, and then it would be useless. So we're going to be conscious of shadow areas as we study the placement of fire sprinklers. Now, there are different types of sprinklers, and sprinkler is one of the definitions in here. They have it separated out. An automatic sprinkler is a heat-actuated sprinkler that opens automatically. That means when the heat hits it, the little cylinder pops and water comes out. Residential sprinklers are basically the same, but we have some differences in definition. A residential sprinkler has a higher discharge pattern than that of a standard spray sprinkler. They have been specifically developed for the discharge of water higher on the walls in order to keep the ceiling gas temperatures lower. This will help prevent flashover in a fire and thus increase the chance of human survivability. Here's an illustration of a spray pattern for a standard spray pennant. The water's going to shoot out and fall down. Compare that with the spray pattern of a residential pennant. Notice how it's reaching all the walls and focusing spray across the ceiling. Once again, this knocks down the heat and the flammable gases in that smoke that are just about to go to flashover. It's going to hit that first. Of course, water is going to be falling all over the room. But the point here is that residential sprinklers aim that water distribution more horizontally to get more of those gases cooled off. In definitions, we also find a series of different types of fire sprinkler systems.
Note to viewer, Plumber Tom is about to read to you from the book. For best viewing results, do not let your mind shut off. Follow along in your book as he reads.
An antifreeze sprinkler system is a wet pipe system that uses automatic sprinklers and contains a liquid solution to prevent freezing of the system. It's intended to discharge the solution upon the sprinkler operation, followed immediately by water from the water supply. So the system's filled with an antifreeze so that the pipes won't freeze, but once that water's moving, the antifreeze is pushed out and water follows. The dry pipe system is a sprinkler system employing automatic sprinklers that are attached to a piping system containing air, nitrogen, or other approved gas pressure that is released, and that permits the water pressure to open a valve known as the dry pipe valve, and then the water flows through the piping system and out the open sprinkler. So the advantage to a dry pipe system is that you don't have to worry about it freezing. It's full of air until one of the sprinklers pops open. Then the dry pipe valve opens up and allows the water to fill the pipes and empty out at the head. The multi-purpose piping sprinkler system is a piping system intended to serve both domestic needs in excess of single fixture and the fire protection needs of a common piping system in a dwelling unit. What we're saying here is we're going to use the same water that we put into our fixtures to feed the sprinklers. It's all going to be together in one. A network sprinkler system is a type of multi-purpose system. This is kind of a subsection of the multi-purpose. So we're using the water for the fixtures, our regular potable plumbing water. But the difference with this system is that the pipes are arranged in a way that any of the sprinkler heads can receive water from 3 different directions at once. That's where these heads are all networked together, and wherever the water needs to go, it can flow quickly from multiple directions to put out the fire. A passive purge sprinkler system is a type of sprinkler system that serves a single toilet in addition to the fire sprinklers. So not as involved as a system that's for all of the plumbing, but it's a fire sprinkler and it serves a toilet. What's the advantage of that? Well, it keeps the water fresh and moving through the system. A pre-action sprinkler system is a sprinkler system that employs automatic sprinklers that are attached to a piping system that contains air that might or might not be under pressure, with a supplemental detection system installed at the same areas as the sprinklers. So in this case, we're trying to avoid freezing. We put air in there. Might not even have pressure, but there's some other detection within the room for a fire that would open a water valve and allow the water to push through. A pre-engineered sprinkler system is a packaged sprinkler system including all the components connected to the water supply and designed to be installed according to the pre-tested limitations. A simple sprinkler system says, for fire protection purposes, an integrated system of underground and overhead piping designed in accordance with fire protection engineering standards. The installation includes one or more automatic supplies. A portion of the sprinkler system above ground is a network of specially sized hydraulically designed piping installed in a building, structure, or area, generally overhead, and to which sprinklers are attached in a systematic pattern. The system is usually activated by heat from a fire and discharges water over the area. Let me just point out this definition is a blanket definition for all of them, because all of them do that. Bring water in from underground outside, distribute it throughout the building, and splash it all over the fire. A standalone system is a sprinkler system where the water above ground piping serves only the fire sprinklers. That means it's been separated, it's not connected with potable, and it's just there to put out the fire. This is common in commercial, industrial, where the whole thing is just separated from the other water. But it can happen in residential. Finally, a wet pipe sprinkler system employs automatic sprinklers attached to the piping system that contain water and connected to the water supply so that the water discharges immediately from the sprinklers opened by the heat from a fire. Yeah, basically it's always got water, and as soon as those heads pop, water is delivered.
Note to viewer, you have successfully endured this section as Plumber Tom read to you from the book. Congratulations if your mind is still functional.
Have a look here with me at a couple diagrams of these piping systems as found in the appendixes in the back. This is a multi-purpose piping system called a tree system. A tree, as you know, has a trunk and branches. We see that here. We've got the water meter. The water comes into the building. There's a manifold, and then it continues along a trunk and branches off with sprinklers to each of the areas or compartments. Compare that with the multi-purpose piping system called the loop system. In this case, we see the water coming from the meter going to a manifold, and then it is piped into a loop that circles all the way around through the different compartments of the building. From the loop, we branch off for our heads. This may provide some advantages for water flow, where water could be coming to the head from multiple directions. Then we take that to the next level, and as mentioned before, this is the network system, a multi-purpose piping system where we follow the water in from the meter, it comes to a manifold, and then it is brought into the heads. This looks like a chaotic spider web or something. The point is that each head has to have at least 3 connections to water, and that way water can be moving through it from multiple directions, increasing the amount of volume. That's the idea. Like I say, a little bit chaotic. This would be great if you're running PEX. You just pull in here, pull to there, hook them up to the heads. And you're not too worried about how straight or nice it looks. So that's what we have for chapters 1, 2, and 3 of the NFPA 13D Residential Fire Sprinkler. Hopefully this is a good introduction or explanation of what's in these chapters. Once again, as you look into this code, these chapters are not very long. I mean, some of them don't even last a page. So take the time to read them for yourselves, familiarize yourself with what's in the book and where this information is in the book. Make sure you're marking, highlighting, and getting to know this. Join me in the next presentation where we'll pick it up in chapter 4. I'll see you there.